Zara's voice cracked as she reached for him, but Victor didn't stop. He didn't even turn. In the sudden, suffocating silence of the restaurant, glasses stayed paused midair. To the onlookers, it was a familiar scene, a powerful man ignoring a desperate woman. Simple, unimportant, but they didn't see the clock. Zara wasn't just begging for his attention. She was trying to stop a fuse she'd lit herself. She had come here to apologize, only to realize that Victor Kane hadn't just walked away from her. He had already made his move. And when a man like Victor Kane decides to end something, he doesn't just leave. He burns the bridge while you're still standing on it. Zara had exactly 4 minutes to stop the sequence she had set in motion, or the man walking away would be the least of her problems. Zara Vaughn wasn't the kind of woman people noticed twice. Not because she wasn't beautiful. She was, but because she carried herself like someone who didn't want attention. Quiet, careful, always observing before speaking. That was how she survived working under Victor Kane. Because in his world, saying the wrong thing once could end everything. Victor Kane wasn't just a businessman. People called him many things. Investor, owner, power broker. But those who really knew, those who had seen what happened behind closed doors, used one word: dangerous. And not because he shouted, not because he threatened, but because he didn't need to. Victor was quiet, controlled, the kind of man who could sit in a room full of noise and still be the most powerful presence there. Zara had worked for him for almost 2 years. Assistant, that was her title. But in reality, she managed things others couldn't. Schedules, private meetings, sensitive information, the kind of details no one else was trusted with. And she was good at it. Too good, because Zara had one habit, one small flaw that didn't seem dangerous at first. She always believed she could fix things later. If something went wrong, I'll handle it. If something felt off, I'll deal with it tomorrow. If a decision felt rushed, I'll correct it. She trusted herself like that. Calm under pressure. Quick thinking. Always one step ahead. Or at least, that's what she believed. Victor noticed it too. Not the confidence. The flaw. He saw it in the way she paused before acting, in the way she sometimes chose the easier path, instead of the right one. But he never said anything. He didn't need to. Victor Kane didn't warn people. He watched, and he remembered. Still, Zara had earned his trust. More than most. She was one of the few people allowed close enough to see his routine, his silence, his patterns. Even the way he observed people without speaking. And sometimes, just sometimes, she felt like she understood him. Not fully. No one ever did. But enough to know when something mattered. And when it didn't. Or at least, that's what she thought. Because 3 nights ago, something small happened. So small, it didn't seem important. A message, a request, a decision that took less than a minute. She almost ignored it. But she didn't. And that was the beginning of everything. The restaurant tonight was one of Victor's regular places. Private, exclusive, no cameras, no noise unless allowed. The kind of place where deals weren't written, they were understood. Zara stood near the entrance, tablet in hand, checking the final details. Everything was perfect. As always, guest confirmed, security in place, timing aligned, nothing out of position, at least nothing obvious. But something felt off. She couldn't explain it, not clearly, just a slight tension in the air. The kind you feel before something breaks. She glanced across the room. Victor was already seated, still, silent, watching, not the people, not the room, her. And for a brief moment, just a second, Zara felt it, that quiet pressure, that unspoken question, as if he already knew something, anything. She looked away first, because even after 2 years, holding Victor Kane's gaze too long never ended well. A server passed by. Soft music played. Everything looked normal, but Zara's chest tightened slightly, a feeling she couldn't shake. And then her phone vibrated. One message, unknown number, 3 words. It's already done. She froze, just for a second. But that second, that was enough. Because somewhere across the room, Victor Kane stopped moving. Not dramatically, not suddenly, just still. And when he slowly lifted his eyes again, there was no question left in them, only certainty. Zara's breath caught, because in that moment, she understood something she hadn't before. He knew, not how, not when, but he knew. And suddenly, everything she thought she could fix later felt like it was slipping out of her hands. Fast, too fast. She took a step forward, then another, heart racing now, because whatever was happening, whatever had already started, she was part of it. And worse, she didn't know how to stop it. Victor stood up, calm, composed, like nothing had changed, but everything had. Zara moved quickly now, trying to reach him before. Before what? She didn't even know, but she knew one thing. If he walked out of that room, she might never get another chance. Victor. Her voice came out sharper than expected. Too loud, too desperate. Heads turned. The room shifted. And just like that, everything was no longer controlled. Victor didn't respond, didn't slow down, didn't look at her. Zara's chest tightened, because now it wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was real. Something had gone wrong, terribly wrong, and she was running out of time, fast. But everything was about to change. Zara moved faster. Her heels clicked sharply against the polished floor, cutting through the silence that had already begun to settle across the restaurant. Victor, wait. Still nothing. He didn't stop, didn't slow down, didn't even acknowledge her voice. And that was worse than anger, because Victor Kane didn't ignore people unless it was already over. Zara's chest tightened. Something inside her shifted, because now it was clear. Whatever had started wasn't small anymore. But wait, it didn't start tonight. It started 3 nights ago, and back then, it felt like nothing. The message had come in late, after hours. Zara was already home, halfway through reviewing the next day's schedule. Unknown number. Short. Direct. We need access. It's urgent. She almost ignored it. Actually, she should have, because Victor had one rule she never broke. No unauthorized access. Ever. Not to meetings. Not to files. Not to locations. Everything went through him. Always. But that night, Zara hesitated, because the message didn't feel random. It felt informed, specific, like whoever sent it already knew how things worked. She typed back, "Identify yourself." The reply came instantly. "Your running point on Thursday night. Private booking. Same venue." Zara frowned. That was true, but not public information, not even internal. Her grip tightened slightly, because now, this wasn't just unusual. It was wrong. She should have stopped there, blocked the number, reported it, waited, but she didn't, because of one thought. One small, dangerous thought. I can handle this. So she asked one more question. What do you want access to? The response took longer this time. 30 seconds. Then, entry confirmation. Nothing else. Simple, minimal, harmless on the surface. Zara leaned back in her chair, thinking, calculating, because technically, it wasn't full access. Just confirmation. Just a name on a list. That was all. And if it was legitimate, delaying could cause problems. Unnecessary ones. She checked the system, cross-referenced the request. Everything looked almost normal. Almost. There were small inconsistencies. Tiny ones. Easy to miss. Easy to ignore. And that's exactly what she did. Because again, she believed she could fix it later. So she approved it. Quietly. No report. No escalation. No mention to Victor. Just a small adjustment. A name added. A detail change. And then she closed her laptop, told herself it was handled, and went to sleep. But the next morning, something felt off. Nothing obvious. No alerts. No warnings. Everything ran smoothly. Too smoothly. Zara noticed it during the briefing. Victor was quieter than usual. Not distracted. Not irritated. Just observing. More than normal. And then he asked a question. Out of nowhere. Any changes to tonight's list? Zara's heart skipped. just slightly, barely noticeable, but she felt it, because the answer should have been simple. No, that's what she always said. That's what she always meant. But this time, that wasn't true. Not completely. And for a split second, she considered telling him, explaining, fixing it early. But then, that same thought came back. It's nothing. So she nodded, calm, controlled. Everything is as planned. Victor held her gaze for a moment longer than usual. Not accusing, not questioning, just looking. And then he looked away. Good. That was it. Conversation over. But something in that moment shifted. Zara felt it. Didn't understand it. But she felt it. And still, she said nothing. Back in the present, Zara reached the center of the room. Victor was already near the exit. Security subtly repositioning. The atmosphere tightening. The kind of silent movement most people wouldn't notice. But she did, because she knew what it meant. Something had been triggered. Victor, please. Her voice cracked this time. Not planned, not controlled. Real. And for the first time, he stopped. Just for a second, Zara stepped closer. Hope rising fast. Too fast. I can explain. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Victor didn't turn. Didn't face her. Didn't respond. And then he spoke. Low. Calm. Controlled. You already did. Zara froze. Because that tone, that quiet certainty, meant one thing. He wasn't asking. He already knew. Her mind raced. Trying to catch up. Trying to understand how. What exactly he had seen. Because she hadn't told anyone. No one. Not a single person. And yet, here they were. At the edge of something breaking. Fast. Her chest tightened. Because now, it wasn't about explaining anymore. It was about damage control. And she was losing control. Quickly, Victor took another step forward. Closer to the exit. And Zara felt it. That invisible line. That moment where things stopped being fixable. This was a mistake, she said quickly. Too quickly. But she had no time left. I can fix it. I just need... Victor moved again, cutting her off without a word. And that's when it hit her. He wasn't giving her the chance. Not this time. Not anymore. And that was her real mistake. Because now, whatever she had started was already moving without her. And she had no idea how far it had gone. The doors hadn't even closed yet. When everything changed, Zara stood frozen, heart pounding, thoughts colliding. Because once Victor walked out, there was no undoing this. No reset. No second explanation. But something stopped her. Not him. Something else. A movement. Subtle. Across the room. One of the guests stood up. Slowly. Too calmly. Too deliberately. Zara's eyes locked onto him. Because she recognized that face. Not personally. But from the list. The name she added. Her stomach dropped. Because now, this wasn't theory anymore. This wasn't a small mistake. This was real. And it was happening. Right now. The man adjusted his cufflinks, glanced briefly toward the exit, where Victor had just walked through, and then smiled. Not a friendly smile, not a polite one. Something else, something colder. And then he started walking, not toward the exit, toward Victor's table. Zara's breath caught, because nothing about that made sense. The dinner was over. Victor had left. There was no reason, no acceptable reason, for anyone to approach that table now. And yet, he kept moving, step by step, unstoppable. Zara's instinct screamed. This was wrong. This was very wrong. But wait, it got worse. Because as she looked closer, she noticed something else. Something small. Something most people would miss. His hand, slightly clenched, holding something, not visible, but not empty. And suddenly, everything connected. Too fast. Too late. Her pulse spiked. Because now, she understood. Not everything, but enough. The access wasn't just access. It was entry, position, timing, and she had given it. Freely, without question, without verification, without thinking it through. And now, It was unfolding in front of her. Zara took a step forward, then another, mind racing, body reacting before thought. Because if she was right, if even part of what she was thinking was true, then Victor walking out wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Wait. Her voice came out low this time, focused, urgent, but the man didn't stop, didn't react, didn't even acknowledge her presence. And then he reached the table, paused, just for a second, and slowly placed something down. A small object, dark, unmarked, ordinary. On the outside, Zara's heart slammed against her chest, because she knew that kind of stillness, that kind of precision. That wasn't random. That was planned, carefully, deliberately. And then the man turned, walked away, blending back into the room like nothing had happened, like he had never been there, like none of this mattered. But it did. Zara rushed forward, hands shaking now, because deep down, she already knew. She didn't need confirmation, but she needed to see it, needed to understand how bad this was. She reached the table, stared at the object, hesitated, and then, slowly, she picked it up. Light, too light. Her breath hitched, because, in that moment, she realized something terrifying. This wasn't the full plan, not even close. This was only a piece, a signal, a setup, and whatever came next was already in motion. Zara looked toward the exit. Victor was gone, completely gone, and for the first time, real fear settled in, because now it wasn't just about what she had done. It was about what was coming, and she had no control over it. None. But that, she whispered to herself, voice barely audible, wasn't even the worst part. Zara didn't think. She moved, fast. The object was still in her hand as she turned sharply, scanning the room again. The man who placed it, gone, completely gone, like he had never been there. And that was the first confirmation this was bigger than she thought. Her breathing tightened, because now she understood something clearly. This wasn't random. This wasn't a mistake someone could correct with a quick explanation. This was planned, and she had opened the door for it. But wait, it got worse, because suddenly her phone vibrated again. Same unknown number, same cold precision. She hesitated, just for a second, then opened it. You're too late. Zara's stomach dropped. Her grip tightened around the object, because those 3 words weren't a threat. They were a statement, a fact, and that meant whatever this was had already moved forward. Her eyes darted toward the exit. Victor, she needed to reach him. Now, not to apologize. Not anymore. To warn him. Because if he walked out unaware, if he didn't know what had been set in motion, then whatever was coming next, he wouldn't be ready. Zara moved quickly toward the doors. But halfway there, 2 security men stepped in front of her. Subtle, professional, but firm. Miss Vaughn. Her heart pounded harder. Move. Her voice was low, urgent, not emotional anymore. Focused. I need to get to him. Now. They didn't move, didn't even react. And that confirmed everything. This wasn't just about her mistake anymore. Victor already knew something, and he had already given instructions. Please, she said sharper now. This isn't about me. Still nothing. Just silence. Controlled. Unbreakable. And then one of them spoke. Mr. Kane has requested that you remain inside. Zara froze, because that sentence was worse than rejection. It was containment. He wasn't ignoring her anymore. He was isolating her. And that meant he knew enough to act. But not everything. Not yet. Her mind raced, because time was slipping fast. And then another vibration. Her phone again. She didn't want to open it, but she did. Watch the door. Zara's breath caught. Slowly, almost unwillingly, she turned her head toward the entrance, and that's when she saw it. A man, different, not the same one from before, but similar, calm, precise, walking in like he belonged there. And suddenly, everything aligned. There wasn't just one. There were multiple. positions, timing, layers, and she had triggered all of it. Her pulse spiked, because now this wasn't just a setup. This was a coordinated move, and Victor was walking straight into it. "Let me through," she said again, this time louder, desperation breaking through. But still, they didn't move, didn't respond, didn't even look at her, because to them, the order was clear, and Zara was no longer part of the solution. She was a problem, and that broke something inside her, because for the first time, she wasn't ahead. She wasn't in control. She wasn't fixing anything. She was watching it fall apart, and she couldn't stop it. Her chest tightened, because now every second mattered, and she was stuck, useless, powerless. And then the lights flickered, just once, subtle, barely noticeable. But Zara saw it, and her blood ran cold, because that wasn't an accident. That was a signal. And in that moment, she realized something terrifying. This was happening now, not later, not outside, not somewhere else, right here. And she had seconds, at best. What happened next? She whispered under her breath. No one was prepared for. The sound came first. Not loud, not explosive, just a sharp crack, like something snapping under pressure. The entire room froze. Every movement, every voice, gone. Silence, heavy, unnatural. And then panic followed, fast, uncontrolled. People turning, standing, voices rising, confusion spreading like fire. But Zara didn't move, because she knew this wasn't random. This wasn't chaos. This was a plan. Her eyes locked onto the entrance. The second man had stopped walking, standing still, watching, waiting. And then he stepped back, calm, unbothered, as if his role was already complete. Zara's heart pounded violently now, because everything connected. The access, the message, the object, the positioning. It was never about one moment. It was about timing. And Victor was the target. But wait, here's the part that broke her, because suddenly her phone lit up again. One final message. No delay, no hesitation. You were the opening. Zara's breath stopped, because that sentence confirmed everything. She wasn't just involved. She was essential. Without her, none of this would have happened. Her decision, her approval, her silence, that was the key. And she gave it freely. The room grew louder now. Security moving. People being guided out. Controlled chaos. But Zara couldn't hear any of it, because her mind had already gone somewhere else. Back to that moment, that message, that decision. I can fix it later. Her chest tightened painfully, because now there was no later, only consequences. And then she saw him, Victor Kane, standing just outside the entrance, still, unshaken, untouched, watching everything unfold. Zara's eyes widened, because that didn't make sense. If he was a target, why wasn't he reacting? Why wasn't he moving? Why wasn't he affected? And then it hit her, hard, sudden, clear. He knew, not just something, everything. The access, the setup, the timing, even her involvement. And he didn't stop it. He let it happen. Zara's breath shook, because now this wasn't just her mistake. This was his move too. A test, a trap, or something far worse. Victor's eyes shifted, locked onto hers, from across the distance. And for the first time, there was something in them. Not anger, not disappointment. Finality. Zara took a step forward. Instinct, emotion, desperation. Victor, but her voice broke, because now she understood why he walked away, why he didn't listen, why he didn't give her a chance. He had already seen who she was. Not her loyalty, not her effort, her flaw, her decision, her weakness. And that was enough. Her vision blurred slightly, because the weight of it finally hit, not just what happened, but what it meant. She hadn't just made a mistake. She broke his trust. And in his world, that was irreversible. Victor turned, Calm, controlled, walking away once again. No rush, no hesitation, just certainty. And this time, Zara didn't follow, because now she knew there was nothing left to say, nothing left to fix, nothing left to hold on to. And in that moment, everything inside her collapsed. And in that moment, she whispered, everything changed forever. The restaurant was almost empty now. The noise was gone. The tension had settled into something quieter, something heavier. Zara sat alone. Same chair, same table. But everything felt different, because now she wasn't part of the system anymore. She was what remained after it broke. The staff moved carefully around her, cleaning, resetting, restoring the space like nothing had happened, like nights like this were normal. Maybe they were, but not for her, not anymore. Zara stared at her hands, still, unmoving, because hours had passed, but her mind hadn't. It kept replaying everything. That message, that decision, that moment. She said, "I'll fix it later." She let out a slow breath, because now she understood something she hadn't before. There are decisions you don't get to fix, only live with. But wait, that wasn't the end, because something shifted, quietly, behind her. Footsteps, slow, measured, familiar. Zara didn't turn immediately. She didn't need to. She already knew. Victor Kane. He stopped a few steps behind her, close enough to be felt, far enough to remain distant. Silence settled between them, not awkward, not tense, just real. Zara finally spoke, soft, controlled, different from before. "I know." No explanation, no defense, no excuses, because now she wasn't trying to fix anything. She was accepting it. Victor didn't respond right away, and when he did, his voice was the same, calm, precise, unreadable. "Do you?" Zara swallowed slightly, then nodded, slow. "I wasn't careful." Pause. "I thought I had time." Another pause. "I thought I could control it." Her voice didn't break, because this time, it wasn't emotion speaking. It was truth. Victor stepped slightly closer, not enough to close the distance, just enough to shift the air between them. "You made a decision," he said, not accusing, not judging, just stating it. Zara nodded again. "I did." Silence. And then, for the first time, Victor moved around her, standing where she could see him, his expression unchanged, but his eyes, sharp, focused, seeing everything. "You weren't wrong about one thing," he said. Zara looked up, confused, just slightly. Victor continued, "You could have fixed it." Pause. "But not later." That hit, not hard, but deep, because that was it. That was the truth she missed. Zara exhaled slowly, because now she understood fully. Timing wasn't just important. It was everything. Victor studied her for a moment longer, not the way he used to, not as an employee, not as someone useful, but as someone who had crossed a line and learned something from it. And then he spoke again. "You saw it in the end." Zara nodded. "Yes." Her voice was steady now, clear, no more delays. Victor held her gaze, and for the first time, something shifted. Not forgiveness, not approval, recognition. Small, subtle, but real. "You don't get another mistake like that," he said. Not a warning, a fact. Zara didn't hesitate. "I won't make one." And this time, she meant it, not because she was trying to prove anything, but because something inside her had changed. That part of her, that believed she always had time, was gone. Completely. Victor turned slightly, as if preparing to leave again. And for a second, Zara thought that was it, the end. But then, he stopped, without looking back. He spoke one last time. "Be ready tomorrow." Zara blinked, surprised, not dramatically, just enough, because that sentence meant one thing. She wasn't finished, not erased, not replaced, not yet. A second chance, not given, earned. Victor walked away. This time, Zara didn't chase him, didn't call his name, didn't try to stop him, because now she understood something she hadn't before. Not every moment needs to be held on to. Some moments are meant to change you. She sat there for a while longer, quiet, still, but not broken, different, stronger, clearer, and when she finally stood up, there was no hesitation, no second guessing, no later, only now, only action, only awareness, because the lesson had settled deep, permanent, unavoidable. One decision can open a door, but it can also destroy everything behind it. Sometimes, it's not the mistake that changes your life. It's the moment you realize you should have acted sooner. Because in real life, there isn't always time to fix things later. Some chances don't wait. Some moments don't repeat. And some people don't listen twice. So tell me, what would you have done in her place?